Ever wonder what financial advisors have to say about money goals, the market, or economic issues? If you have, then this podcast is for you. Behind the Designs gives you a sneak peek into the internal conversations at Financial Design Studio. Michelle Smollenberger, a certified financial planner and the CEO here at FDS, will be your host and guide. Welcome to Behind the Designs.
Welcome to this first episode of the Financial Design Studio podcast, Behind the Designs. You know, recording this takes me back to writing our first blog post when we started the business, choosing our logo, the name of the business. So it only makes sense that we take you back to the beginning as we're starting this podcast. So we take you back to the beginning so you understand more about us, our team. So we've got our team, our 4 advisors here today, and the 4 owners, partners. So this is fun to talk through. This reminds us, I think, every few years, it's good for us to do something like this to really get excited again about, wait, what are we creating? You know, we sometimes just get stuck in the work. So this is really fun for us to do. First, let's just take a few minutes for everybody kind of going around here so you can kind of get used to our voices. You can hear everybody. Why don't you just give us a couple minutes or a minute of, you know, how you got started, why you're at FDS, how'd you end up here, what you do on our team, and that'd be great. So Rob, if you're willing to start, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. I've been in investment management and kind of finance for 25 years. I spent the first 20 years in investment management, so helping to run money for like large pension funds, endowments, things like that. That was great. It's what I wanted to do for a long time. Did get old after a while, so as I kind of got towards the latter part of my career there, I started to think about maybe becoming an advisor, trying to help people directly, because the work I was doing before, I didn't really see the end clients a lot, and I really wanted to kind of see what the impact was of giving advice. So started my own firm 5 years ago, and then we merged 3 years ago. So so it's been quite a journey. Yes.
Yeah. And tell us what we do. We know what you do, but tell everybody what you do here at FDS.
So I'm our chief investment officer. So I manage all the portfolios, create our investment models, write blogs, things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. You keep us informed on the market, what's happening, where we should be going. You're going to hear all about that in the coming episode. So, all right, Trevor, what about you?
Yeah, so I actually started my journey, if you will, in terms of advising, actually back in college. So I really, I found financial planning because I was an economics major at the time, and I saw literally just a flyer on the wall. And it talked about a financial planning program, and I thought, hey, that's kind of interesting. You can merge money with connecting with people. So I had a one-on-one meeting with my advisor, my program advisor at the time, and I was hooked. Literally after that meeting, I knew for the rest of my life that I wanted to be helping people with their money and just become a financial planner, financial advisor. And that just really started on my whole journey. Everything I did after that point was really focused on fulfilling the program, finding an internship, finding a job in financial planning. And eventually, after I graduated from Virginia Tech, I moved out here to the Midwest to start my journey with another firm, and I worked there for about 7 years, just under 7 years, and realized it was about time for me to go out on my own. And I started Presence Financial, which was my old firm, in the start of 2017. And then we met, kind of ran through a couple of different things, and realized that there were a lot of benefits to growing together as a firm and leveraging every person's unique abilities, and their skill sets and their strengths and whatnot. So, we did the merger, and we're here 3 years later, kind of recapping, going through all of that. So, that's kind of the quick rundown of my journey, if you will. I think the other question was, what do we primarily do, or what do I primarily do here? So from the client-facing side of things, I generally tend to take care of kind of the insurance, the employee benefits, situations like that for folks. But then on the internal side, I guess my official title is the COO, so the operations officer. Mostly I take care of a lot of stuff behind the scenes. So whether it's making sure our systems are up to date, making sure that automations are running, we're just running as efficiently as possible, just that we're not wasting time, and we're trying to find the best solutions for our clients.
Yeah. So we've lived to tell about the merger. That's good. We're all still here. And Trevor, I think when we need marketing advice, we should come to you, because I think you might be like, just put flyers on the wall. People will find out about us. That worked for you.
Flyers on the wall is what got me in the door, so you never know. It could be that one little iota. So
exactly. No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Steve, what about you?
Yeah, my journey to today started off back with an Accounting 101 course. I remember going to college, not sure what I wanted to do, and my parents recommended taking an accounting course. They're like, that's a life skill that you'll never regret. So it started with that. It was a teacher that really poured into her students and really made me passionate about that. I love math, and when you pair math with accounting, there's no gray areas. It's like math. It's black and white. It's either right or wrong. So that led to accounting, which led to tax. I've worked at a CPA firm, a couple throughout the years, through internships and jobs, and then eventually to an RIA, so a financial planning firm, and then eventually our own, where you and I started our own and then merged with Rob and Trevor. My role here has been primarily tax preparation, tax planning, tax projections, and what I think I enjoy most about that is while you have an answer, there's always a story behind it. Every tax return has a story. Each individual that comes in with their information, it's a puzzle. And how do we figure it out? How do we make sure it's right? And how do we really use it to better their future? So my role here at FDS is officially CFO. So that's putting together the financials for the firm, figuring out our budgets, making sure we're on track, budgeted versus actual. Just a fancy way of saying making sure the business is doing what we all are planning for it to do. And that's kind of grown in its roles over the years, and yeah, it's where we are today.
I cannot wait to hear that episode. Every tax return has a story. That's going to be a good one for the future. That's good. Yeah. I mean, Steve, the background in tax, everything's always changing. So, yeah, we all appreciate your knowledge with that. So, thank you.
Yeah, I think it was actually when we first met, our kind of first interaction, before we were even dating. I asked you what you did, you asked me what I did, and it just kind of collided. Taking something historical, so like taxes, taking something forward-looking like financial planning, that's a perfect marriage.
Yeah, so a heads up to the listener, we are married, Steve and I. If you didn't know that, now you do. But yeah, exactly. First conversation, what I did is forward-looking, his backward, so it was just fun. So we were both excited about what we did. I just happened to talk a lot about it. So it's really fun. My background, so really similar. I started in college and started in accounting, so with an accounting course, actually in high school, just at a small high school, but there was an accounting class. I think there was 2 or 3 people in that class, but the accounting teacher, was fun, loved what she did. And I remember at the time you get like these packets of all this information, balance sheets and profit and loss statements, and it's like a kit that for school, and you're like, okay, solve the problems. And I just loved opening the kit and then solving the problems for that business. So that's where it started. And then going into college, I kind of said, well, let's start in accounting. I had a job at the time and just realized I wanted more people interaction. So eventually got over to financial planning a year later. So and started at a firm right out of college and loved that. So I was there for 12 years. And there was just a point where we said, it's just time. It's time for us to start our own firm and to kind of, keep growing. And so that brings us to the beginning of where Financial Design Studio started. And what's neat about this is all 4 of us started businesses really at the same same time. And so we're going to walk you through, the story of Financial Design Studio. The cool thing is you'll get to hear, Rob and Trevor, their experience in starting a business too. So this is going to take them back as they were starting those, and pleasant or unpleasant moments as we go.
Yeah,
So,
one thing I just want to chime in. We were chuckling about this a couple of weeks ago, where, like you said, we all started our businesses roughly the same time, and yet, one of the processes by actually starting the businesses is getting registered. So our firms are structured as, or FDS is structured as a fee-only RIA, so the Registered Investment Advisor. But there's a kind of a registration process that we had to go through, and it was really interesting because at the time, some of us got done very quickly. That would be me, and then other of our firms got, it took very much longer, even though we were structured very similarly. There were hardly any changes, but it was just one of the things we were chuckling about because. Even though it was, we all started at the same time, by the actual quote-unquote official start rate, when we could actually start doing stuff, just by happenstance, regulators said, nope, yes, you can start, no, not yet, and it was just funny. So, I don't know.
I take a little bit dimmer view to the regulatory environment that we experienced 5 years ago. I actually met with Trevor before I even got registered. And he's like, oh, yeah, dude, I was up and running in like a month. And I think it took mine like 6 months, and I don't know how many times back and forth with the state of Illinois. So, I was actually at the point where I told my wife, if they come back one more time with a complaint, I'm not going to do this. Just not going to do it. And thankfully, Illinois came back and said, okay, you're good to go, and hit the ground running. And then, got the experience of starting your own business, which is a whole different ball of wax.
we're gonna talk about that.
I've talked about that, Rob. Like, if you hadn't gone through, if your firm hadn't been registered, we might not be sitting here together.
Exactly.
Yeah. This conversation last week when we were talking about compliance, and I said, wait, we almost never met. And so, it's just so interesting how it's different. And so I think it's fun to just really think back what it was like and where we've come from. So we're finishing the 6th year of Financial Design Studio, going into our 7th year. And, as a business owner, like, there's a large percentage of businesses that do not make it past a certain number of years. And so it's just, I think really encouraging to look back and to say, there was a point where we figured we were better together. And so it's really exciting where today I feel like, I'm speaking for myself, but I think we all still believe that. And so it's really exciting to have these feelings and that same feeling and think about it. So let's just go back to the beginning of Financial Design Studio. When you start a business, you think of a name. It's like your child. What are we going to name this, and what should it look like? And with your child, you can't decide that, but with a logo and things like that, you can. So back to Financial Design Studio, we wanted financial because we wanted people to know what we did. When we say what the name of our business was, we wanted people to know, it has something to do with finances. And design, because we believe that you can plan or design for the goals that you want to achieve. So it's not just happenstance. We invest in, okay, this is what happened, but we can actually design and along the way change things to where we're achieving the goals that we want to achieve. And so that's why the word design was chosen. And then studio, because we didn't want to be or feel like a huge corporation, but rather we want to be and are a firm size where we know that we can know our clients personally, and we provide custom plans that are specifically for that client's unique circumstances. And so, I just remember each word was so important, and we were like, okay, what's the name of something that isn't big but it's small but it's custom, and so I just remember all these conversations. And then with the logo, we wanted that to be reflected in the design. We wanted graph paper in the back of the design, and just little things where looking back, those were such little decisions, but when you're setting up your firm and what you want it to be, and you really want people to understand kind of what what you're starting and what you're doing and how you want to help them, these little pieces now continue to tell the story. And so even from back then, it was intentional, the words that we used in the name. And so hopefully this really helps you to understand, we really believe that what we do and how we're helping people matters, and we really care. And so even all to those little details. So the first thing, naturally, you set up your business. Great, you have all of this. You have your business cards, maybe, and you're ready to launch. So naturally, you need to tell people you exist. So the first thing you might do is you've got a website, and you might write a blog post, kind of that first, hey, I exist. And I remember writing this blog post, kind of, what's the first thing? And looking back, we're thinking, okay, when we hit publish, the world is going to see this. It feels so dramatic, and okay, it's got to be right before we hit publish. And if you know anything now, I am not the writer in this group of 4. So for me, it was like, or the editor, I'm the talker. Obviously, I'm in my place now. So, when we hit publish, it was like, oh, the world's going to see it, and nervous. Looking back now, I think our blog post could have said, Dear Mom and Dad, we know you think we're crazy, and that would have just worked. Trevor, Rob, when you guys, and Steve, even like when you're writing those, that first kind of, hey, I'm letting the world know I existed, take us back. Like, what did that feel like? Was it nervous? Was it exciting? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I remember laboring over my first article or a couple blog posts. I look back, I pulled it up just to kind of see it again. It was what's in your toolbox, and I remember writing. It felt like a college term paper. I remember when I was done, my head hurt. I had read it and reread it so many times to make sure everything was 100% accurate. When it was really, looking back now, it was such a simple project. It was everything I knew, but just putting it into words was really, really hard at the beginning. Kind of taught me who I was and what I thought and how I communicated that to others. But yeah, I remember that very first couple articles were really hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what do you guys think?
Yeah, it was quite an experience. I like writing, so that's what I do here at FDS is write a lot. But yes. But it was just a completely different kind of writing, because at that point I had spent my entire career. The only writing I ever did was for the investment professionals that I worked with, really, and sophisticated, very intelligent investors. And you get really into like jargon. You get into the financial jargon and using all these acronyms and all that. And I remember writing my first blog post, and I thought it was a great blog post, but I had somebody read it for me, and they didn't know half of what I was writing about, because I used all this jargon and it just didn't make sense. And it really brought home to me that, the importance of really communicating effectively with people in a way that they can understand. So you don't have to be an expert in everything to be able to understand it. It's our job to make sure that we explain it in a way that everyone can understand. So that was a huge learning experience for me, because explaining what is a mutual fund, I hadn't thought about that question my entire career. It's like, well, everybody knows that, but I quickly realized there's people out there, very smart people, that don't know the difference between a mutual fund and exchange traded fund or whatever. So, that was probably the biggest eye-opening thing for me.
Yeah.
And Rob, that must have really kind of hit home to you, or you learned from that, because the one comment I hear the most when people talk about our newsletters is how your writing style is easy to understand. You take something very complex, make it simple, that the everyday client can read, understand, and feel more educated about.
Well, I mean, that's really the goal. I mean, we're not, the goal isn't to like entertain ourselves and write this, these really complicated blogs. If it's not useful to the reader, it's not useful. So, we really try to, with everything, just make it as useful, practical, and understandable as possible.
Nice.
Yeah. Did you write a blog, Trevor?
No, I never actually officially wrote a blog. I actually, when I started my firm, I was in a small group of other advisors, actually all across the nation. And they encouraged me to not start a blog, but a weekly email chain. So I think that the start of that there were 4 advisors in that group, and I think there were 5 people on that email list. So pretty much just one family member, and then and then those advisors were the first ones to receive it. But looking back, it was really one of those things that I've never been a good writer, and it's strengthened me in such a way that it kind of what Rob was saying, you have to learn how to explain things in such a way that people will understand. And words have never been one of my strong suits. So one of the things we kind of often chuckle about is we have internal meetings is I'll get hung up on words all the time. And the next phrase that comes out of my mouth is words are hard because I just can't think of the words. My brain tends to think in terms of spreadsheets and numbers and trying to solve the problem from that perspective. But it is one of those things where as you deep into that. So even though I'm not necessarily writing a blog post, writing those weekly emails to clients, well, not even really clients at that first start of time, but when it first started, growing and did bring on clients, like Rob said, you have to get to a point where you're educating people and you're not using the jargon. You're not speaking over their head because at the end of the day, if they're not going to understand it, if they're not going to take value from it, well, pretty much both sides wasted their time, right? So
and even if you, like you said, even if you don't have a blog, there's emails. I mean, we just think through all of the mediums, the ways that we try to communicate with clients. I mean, this podcast is just one version of this. Video, we have a printed newsletter. I was just at a conference and I told people, the thing that our clients love the most is actually our paper newsletter. I mean, because they can sit mail with a stamp, like those are actually, I think, the most read because people can sit and read and take it in. And so it's just so interesting. And so this is just one of those ways. What you're already starting to see is as a team, we have different strengths. And I am so thankful that Rob is a gifted writer. I am so thankful that Trevor loves spreadsheets. I am so thankful that Steve loves tax and getting the numbers right and knowing all of the ins and outs of things that are changing. I like to talk, so that's my gift. But it takes all of us that, when we come together, when there's something that someone doesn't do well, usually one of the other of us does. And so that's what's really fun to see is we don't have to hate what we're doing because we just connect the pieces that we each love doing and it comes together. So
I think there's some freedom in that. There's we don't have to rely completely on ourselves. I can rely on my teammates, my coworkers, my just to pick me up in areas I don't know and vice versa. So it allows us to really specialize in our strength skills.
Yeah. So a few years ago, we all knew each other. We started our businesses around the same time. A few years ago, we kind of decided, we were growing, we needed help, and we knew of you guys. We had kept in touch. We had met you at different things. And so it was fun. We got together and basically we're just like, let's throw out the idea of the four of us merging. And, I think when you've created a business and then to decide this isn't going to continue, or I don't want to do it alone, or I can't do it alone, maybe walk us through, Rob and Trevor, some of those emotions and then, kind of the before, what you were thinking and the after, and now being a few years out, thinking about that. I know even Steve and I, when you're adding people in, it's nervous. You aren't sure. And so all of these pieces, those are real emotions and feelings. And as a business owner, you need to pay attention to them. So walk us through kind of the before and after of, what you were thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think my first feeling when you approached us and the thought of, hey, what would it look like to merge? My first answer was no. And just because you get to a point where when you're the one building the business and it's your baby, it's one of those things that it's hard to imagine the other side of that, to say that you aren't in full control. You don't get to make every decision. But as Steve was saying, you can leverage each other's strengths. And that was a huge turning point for me, is recognizing that I don't want to take care of managing my books on a daily basis. I don't want to have to focus so much of my time on the investment research and allocations. I don't want to have to worry about marketing and making sure that from a client perspective, you're still reaching everybody that needs to be reached. I could focus in on the things that I really enjoy doing, is finding the efficiencies and digging into client details and seeing what's going to be the best solution for them. And that's where I love the idea that we could merge all of that together. And that's why we structured it as a merger. But my first inclination was no.
It's fair.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. I mean, at that point, so January 2019, when you first approached us about this idea, I was a year and a half into building my business, and I was just like, there's no way. I'm just getting started, and just kind of getting my feet wet in this entrepreneurship and building a business and all that. So Trevor and I don't even know if Steve and Michelle know this, but we actually went out for burritos after that.
Yep.
And both of us looked at each other and we're like, no, this isn't gonna
I love that.
We're just like, I appreciate the sentiment, but no, we're not going to do that.
Sorry if you guys didn't know that.
No, it's okay. That's why I genuinely love that, because like you this is where I say, like, these are important decisions and you should do those things.
Yeah. So this is the FDS confession. I think where I had gotten to, so what changed from January and April of that year is, really when it changed is there's value in being an entrepreneur. And I think, for people who do that, I just have so much respect because it is insanely hard. And, the longer I had gotten into it, I naively thought, hey, I've been in investments for 20 years, so I know what I'm doing, and this will be really easy. But I didn't know tax. There are lots of ins and outs to insurance and annuities that I didn't know. And I sure as heck didn't know anything about marketing and sales because I never had to do that. I'm an introvert. And so, as I just started to kind of think about all those things, it's like, what is the value of me struggling on my own, and not really enjoying doing a lot of those things versus giving up some control and merging with, as we looked at it on paper, it was just like a perfect fit. Michelle loves marketing. Steve loves tax, and Trevor loves doing a lot of the internal tech stuff that I just want to rip my hair out. So, it just made a lot more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I just love hearing that. I mean, it was such a relief when we merged to not have to know all of the details of investing. I knew enough, but I mean, Rob knows it to a completely different level, and that is completely his strength. So, I mean, from us too, like just this load that you're taking off and you're sharing with the team so that you can do your strengths. Everyone benefits from that. We benefit from it in our lives because we're doing what we love, the pieces we love. Our clients benefit because they're getting the best person to do that for them. So it's just a win-win all the way around. So it's been really fun to see that and experience it, and for all of us to share that and agree on it. So we've merged, we went through that, and I think what we're seeing is we blend really well together. So as we kind of think back, so the history, when we started, our tagline is designed for life. And so, you've heard, kind of all the decisions in the beginning, but one of the biggest pieces that's so important to all of us are our clients and their goals. And when we are building financial plans, these designs, they are designed, they are planned and created so that clients can live their life. They can achieve these goals, and a goal can look like, I want to spend time with my family. I don't want to work forever. At some point I want to stop and I want to invest in my grandkids, whatever that is. It's different for everybody. Or I want to move and have 2 homes. It's very different for everyone. And I remember when we were at our prior firm, there was a doctor who all of a sudden, was like early 50s, and just all of a sudden was, decided, I'm going to retire. I don't need to keep working. I don't just want to keep working to make money. And that just really stood out to me because he was saying, something else is more important to me than working and making more money. And it just really struck me that he was living his life. He wanted to live life. And when we even think about the word life, that's, abundant, that's, maybe joyful. It's, it's kind of this mentality that isn't, oh, I have to do this. No, I have to keep working. When you have a plan, a financial plan, you're creating opportunities to be able to live your life, to reach those goals. And sometimes those things change. And if you have a plan and you've actually been implementing it, then you might have opportunities to change the plan because you've done better than you thought. And so you could make that split decision to say, I'm going to retire because I want to live life. I want to live it now. And I think, that's something you guys can, build in here, or add in like stories that you might have, things you've seen from clients or even our own clients when we see this and we're like, man, I love that they're doing this. Even if it's not like the most financially savvy thing to buy 7 homes, like they're doing what they want and that exciting thing. Like it doesn't always make sense. So any examples that you guys would have or anything you want to add to that?
I would say not so much in terms of examples, but one thing we often talk about is, especially when we're in client presentations, right? There is a financial best option. We can figure out and run all the analysis and do all the projections and figure out what that's actually going to look like. But in reality, the financial option isn't always the best life option. And I think that's one of the things that's really important to us to make sure that we hone in really well is financial doesn't always equal the best life option. And we want to connect with people to figure out what's their best life option. We can understand and see the finance side of things really well, but that, a lot of times life is going to step in the way. So how do we make the most option of that and making sure that people are living their best lives? So I don't have an example otherwise. I just thought about sharing that.
That's good. Yeah.
There's been several, Trevor, where we modeled it out, showed the math answer, and then asked about their feelings answer. So when the math matches the feelings, that's really when it's the perfect situation. And we've seen that with clients when they've stopped a job to become self-employed, when they've started a business, sold a business. We've had clients move, change locations, build a home. We've had a few people even give away their assets to charities or organizations, even family members, and that's really probably brings us the most joy is when we see them enjoying life because of what they've been able to do to get to that point.
Yep.
Yeah, and I would just say, I mean, my favorite part about what we do is really taking ideas and putting numbers on it because it's really easy. My wife and I do this all the time. It's like we would love to own a second home in Guatemala where she's from, for example. We've talked about that since day one, but only since I've become a financial advisor and have talked to clients, it's like, well, let's put a dollar amount on that. Like, what would that mean? What would we have to do to achieve that? And a lot of times we get people nearing retirement and we ask them during our initial meetings, it's like, what do you want to do? We want to travel. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? Does that mean going to Italy every year? Does it mean going to Florida for 3 months out of the year? And it's like, well, probably going to Florida. It's like, okay, well, how many months? 3 months. Okay, so what we do when we build a plan is we look for how much does it cost to rent a decent Airbnb or something in Florida during those months, and we build that right into the plan because we want people to kind of take that next step of, we have this idea, we have this dream, now let's actually try to make it a reality by planning for it. So to me, that is the coolest thing about financial planning is kind of bridging that gap. It's like marrying the math with the dream, which normally those two don't mix, but that's really where the magic happens.
Rob, how many times have we helped clients dream? Like something that they thought they would never do, when we showed them you could, and here's the steps to get to that. It actually happened.
Exactly, yeah. And a lot of times it's just something very simple, like an annual trip, and you build that in, and it's like, well, you know what? You still have capacity to do a lot of other things, and it's like, think about it. You don't have to decide on the spot, and if you say one thing today, it doesn't mean it's set in stone. So, if that's giving money to your kids or funding your grandkids' college education or whatever it is, there's so much, you have the freedom and flexibility to do that. Our job is to really show you, what is possible with the resources that you have.
It was just getting the client to do that first step. And once they did, they saw how much they enjoyed it, how much they were able to basically spend the money to enjoy life. And it's opened so many more conversations.
No, that's great. So this is so fun just to talk through the history of FDS, how it started. You're getting to know us a little bit better. It'll be exciting because you're going to get to know each of us even more in different episodes, and it's so fun because people have stories, and it's fun because we have our own and we love sharing them, and you'll get to know us as well as you'll see how that fits so well with what we do here in the business and how we help clients and explaining things to you and educating. So this podcast is really just starting because we've had so many conversations where we have this 30-minute conversation and we're like, wait, we needed to hit record. Like, that was such a great conversation that we wanted people to hear. And so that's really what this is. You're getting a peek at these internal conversations that we have behind our doors, and we want you to hear them. So we think they're really valuable. So as I wrap this up, I couldn't be more proud to be business partners with each of these guys. Through this podcast, we hope that you learn, that you laugh, hear our personal fun side, listen, and just, we always say, we're here when you're ready. So that's our goal, is we're educating you. Anyone have anything to add, or any other fun stories?
I would just say, this podcast is an example of something I would never have considered on my own. Yep. Just my personality, marketing, that kind of thing. So this is a great example of why I love being part of FDS, because we have you and others that are really encouraging us to try different things. So that's what's great about this.
Yeah. And earlier when you were saying, I'm an introvert, I was like, an introvert on a podcast. Okay. Like, this is interesting. Maybe not having the camera element, So exactly. No, I love that.
Forward to future episodes.
Yeah, thank you. This is going to be fun. Well, thank you for listening to our first podcast episode. Here at FDS, when we create plans, blueprints, we design them for you, your goals in your life. So a lot of times clients don't see kind of the messy behind the scenes, the strategies as we're creating and we're in the numbers, the factors we consider, and just those issues we're trying to work to solve, how you're going to get to your goals. But if you've enjoyed this episode, you're in luck, because we have a couple more episodes already ready to listen to. We're going to dive deep into getting to know more about us. So we'll see you over there on those episodes.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you hear in our podcast, please subscribe. We release new episodes every other week. And quick note, the content discussed on this podcast should not be taken as financial advice. Financial Design Studio accepts no responsibility for your individual actions or choices. But for more information about Financial Design Studio and who we are, check out our website, financialdesignstudio.com. We'll see you in the next episode.